So this whole episode is about your role as a board member in building trust in the company or having a high level of trust. So I'm going to start. I told you that I'm going to give you 4 things. I'm going to start with the first one. The first one is your role in governance. You provide governance. What does that mean? You set policies. The part that you must do as a director to build trust in the company is make trust a priority. You need to communicate it really, really clearly to the CEO, to the executive director, that trust is a priority for you as a board, as an individual board member, part of the entire board. Trust is a priority, not just by words, not just say, I want you to be able to say that we're trusted, but actually say, look, trust is important. It's a priority for us. The second part that you play is oversight. And by oversight, you typically, as your part as a board member, you look at metrics. What are the type of metrics that you look at? You look at, historically, you look at things like profitability. You look at revenue. You look at revenue growth. You look at turnover. Those are certain metrics that as a board, you typically ask the executive director or the CEO to provide you with. You need to ask for trust metrics. What is the level of trust? Now, in a different episode, I'm going to talk about how you measure trust, because trust is kind of one of those vague, abstract constructs that's kind of hard to measure. There is no measurement, a direct measurement. Look at trust as a black box, and this is the very, very short version. Look at trust as a black box with inputs and outputs. You can measure the inputs, which are the leading indicators that you will have trust. If those exist, you will have trust. Look at the outputs, the behaviors, the symptoms of trust. Those are the trailing indicators. If we have trust, we're going to see them. You can look at the inputs, you can look at outputs, and determine whether you have trust or not. So in your role as providing oversight to the company, make sure that there are trust metrics. Establish a baseline, set the goals, and keep monitoring that every board meeting or within your role as a board member. Third is the relationship that you have with the CEO. I can't tell you how many boards I've been on where the relationship with the CEO or the board meeting where the CEO presents and sometimes other executive VPs present is a show. I mean, we're going to show you what we think you want to see, whether it's reality or not, whether it's connected or disconnected from reality. I can tell you that I've been on a board where we found out one day that the executive director forgot to make sure that the board is still in good standing with the state that the organization was in. So you want to have a trusting relationship with the CEO. And it works both ways. You need to trust the CEO enough to give the CEO autonomy. I like Teresa Amabill's definition of autonomy. It's not letting the CEO decide. I'm adopting it. Not letting the CEO decide which mountain to climb. This is something you have to agree with them. And this is part of your direction in setting policy. But you need to let the CEO decide how to climb the mountain. But it needs to work the other direction as well. The CEO needs to trust you too. And I know that it sounds kind of counterintuitive. What do you mean? We're the board. We need to trust him. We don't trust him or her. We're going to replace them. But it's actually the other way around. The CEO must trust you enough to be able to share bad news, to be able to say, I don't know, to be able to take advice, to be able to say, I was wrong. Now, I'm not saying that accepting failure should be celebrated. It should be accepted as long as the CEO, the executive director, learns from mistakes, learns from failure. So there has to be trust between you and the board and the CEO, you, the board, and the CEO, and it has to work in both ways. So the last one, the fourth one, is that you as a board, you set example. Your behavior, if you trust each other, if there is a high level of trust on the board, and the symptoms of that would be a constructive disagreement, your arguments, the way you interact with one another, this spills over to the rest of the company. The CEO sees that, the executive director sees that. The executive team, whenever they see the board, they interact with the board and they see that you have a high level of trust within that board. And I've worked with boards on building that level of trust. And I can tell you, by the way, the hardest boards to work with, school districts or any other boards that are made of elected officials that are elected to their position by other people who are not here. But in any board, your behavior within the board spills over to the executive team, from them to the rest of the company. And strong companies, high trust companies, it spills over to the customers, and customers will buy from you with all the other effects. So it's not just saying that it's DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or CSR, corporate social responsibility, or anything else. It's relative. It's made of many, many other things, and it's your role. This was only a part of an episode of The Trust Show. You can watch the full episode on my YouTube channel, The Trust Show, or listen to it on The Trust Show podcast on Apple or anywhere else you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thank you for watching.